The invasion backfires. Grand Admiral Zirax stood on the command deck of the Vraxian flagship Inevitable Victory, his four arms crossed behind his back as he observed the holographic projection of Earth. The blue-green planet rotated slowly, dotted with the red markers indicating deployment zones for the war beasts. Everything was proceeding according to the standard invasion protocol that had conquered 17 sentient species across 3 galactic arms. "Release the first wave," he commanded, his voice carrying the confident tone of someone who had never known defeat. The ship's tactical officer, Commander Cravex, executed the command with practiced efficiency. "First wave deployed, Admiral. Estimated casualty projections indicate 40% population reduction within the first solar cycle." Zirax allowed himself a small smile, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. "Excellent. The humans will make fine additions to our labor pools. Their planet has abundant resources, and their technological development is precisely at the optimal harvesting stage." The Vraxian Empire had perfected their invasion strategy over centuries. They had bioengineered different classes of war beasts for every conceivable environment and opposition. For Earth, they had selected the Ravagers, 6-limbed predators with hides that could repel most projectile weapons, enhanced speed and strength, and pack-hunting instincts that made them devastatingly effective against organized resistance. "Sir," Cravex reported, "initial telemetry shows successful deployment across all major population centers. Resistance is minimal and disorganized." The command deck crew chittered in approval. The humans were reacting exactly as predicted, with panic, disbelief, and futile attempts at conventional warfare. The scenario was playing out just as it had on countless worlds before. 3 orbital cycles later, the first anomalies appeared in the data. "Admiral," Crevex's voice held an unfamiliar note of concern, "we're seeing unusual patterns in the Ravager pack movements in Sector 7, North America, according to human designation." Zirax waved a dismissive hand. "Local environmental factors. The beasts will adapt." "Sir, it's not adaptation. The packs are being systematically eliminated." This caught Zirax's attention. He approached the tactical display where Cravex had highlighted several regions. The red dots representing Ravager units were disappearing at an alarming rate. "Show me," Zirax demanded. The holographic display shifted to real-time footage captured by orbital sensors. A pack of Ravagers had cornered what appeared to be a small human settlement in a forested region. Standard tactics should have resulted in the complete annihilation of the humans. Instead, the sensors showed the humans had set elaborate traps throughout the forest. As the Ravagers pursued fleeing humans, they triggered deadfalls, explosive devices, and pit traps filled with sharpened stakes. "This is unexpected," Zirax admitted, leaning forward to study the footage more closely. "These aren't military personnel. They appear to be civilians." "Correct, Admiral," Cravex confirmed. "Our intelligence indicated that human civilian populations would be defenseless without their military forces." The footage continued. A Ravager, having avoided the traps, cornered a human male. The beast lunged, but the human rolled to the side with surprising agility, producing a crude weapon that appeared to be constructed from scrap metal. With precise movements, the human drove the makeshift spear into a vulnerable point in the Ravager's eye socket, piercing its brain. "Impossible," Zirax muttered. That human knew exactly where to strike. More disturbing footage followed. Humans in urban environments were adapting to the Ravagers' tactics with alarming speed. They had discovered that the beasts, while nearly invulnerable to frontal attacks, had weaknesses at the joint connections of their limbs and at specific points along their spinal structures. Knowledge of these weaknesses was spreading rapidly through human communication networks. "Sir," a communications officer interrupted, "we're detecting unusual signals across human broadcast channels. They appear to be sharing information about our beasts' biological weaknesses." Zirax paced the command deck, his confidence wavering for the first time. This species was thoroughly assessed. They have no central hive mind, no telepathic abilities, no significant genetic adaptability. They should not be capable of this level of coordinated response without centralized military command. Dr. Vexis, the expedition's chief xenobiologist, stepped forward. Admiral, if I may, our preliminary studies may have underestimated certain human psychological traits. Explain, Zirax demanded. Humans possess an unusual combination of individualistic problem-solving with rapid social information sharing. Each human is, in essence, an independent tactical unit capable of innovation. When they discover effective strategies, they don't wait for hierarchical approval. They immediately share this knowledge with others. Zirax watched as the holographic display updated with new data. The situation was deteriorating rapidly across all fronts. Humans were not only defending but were beginning to hunt the Ravagers actively. They had learned that the beasts communicated through ultrasonic signals and were using this knowledge to confuse and isolate pack members. This is unprecedented, Kravex said, unable to keep the alarm from his voice. No species has ever reversed the advantage against the war beasts so quickly. More disturbing reports flooded in. Humans had captured several Ravagers alive and were studying them. They were learning at an exponential rate, and this knowledge was being shared globally, transcending political boundaries, language barriers, and cultural differences. Admiral, Vexis said hesitantly, there's something else you should see. The display shifted to show a human military facility. Captured Ravagers were being dissected, their biological systems analyzed and understood with remarkable speed. But what truly chilled Zirax was the next image. Humans had begun to repurpose Ravager biological components as weapons. They had extracted venom sacs and were synthesizing the toxins for their own use. They had studied the beast's muscle structure and were developing new armor based on the layered hide of the Ravagers. They're not just fighting the beasts, Zirax realized. They're learning from them, evolving their tactics. Sir, Kravex's voice was now tense with urgency. We're detecting unusual activity in Earth's orbit. Multiple human spacecraft are approaching our deployment vessels. The display showed small crew human vessels appearing to be on suicide trajectories toward the Vraxian deployment ships. But instead of simply crashing into them, the human craft were attaching themselves to the hulls, cutting through with primitive but effective tools and boarding. Impossible, Zirax whispered as he watched humans in environment suits entering the deployment vessels. They can't possibly navigate our technology. But the humans weren't trying to pilot the ships. They were planting explosive devices at critical junctions, guided by what appeared to be hastily assembled maps of Vraxian ship design. Someone on Earth had analyzed the deployment vessel's structure from external observations alone and had determined their most vulnerable points. Admiral, Kravex reported, his voice now openly fearful, 5 deployment vessels have been compromised. We've lost contact with 3. The humans are. They're taking the ships. Zirax stared at the tactical display as it updated, showing the grim reality of their situation. In less than a planetary rotation, what should have been a standard subjugation operation had turned into something unprecedented in Vraxian history. Sir, what are your orders? Kravex asked. Zirax's 4 hands clenched into fists. Prepare a full tactical assessment. I want to understand exactly what went wrong. His eyes narrowed as he studied the movements of the human counterattack. And ready the second wave. We will not be defeated by a pre-interstellar species. But even as he gave the order, Zirax felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. The humans weren't fighting like any species the Vraxians had encountered before. They weren't just defending their territory. They were adapting, evolving their tactics, and turning the Vraxians' own weapons against them. And worse, they seemed to be enjoying it. Humanity's counter-offensive. They're sending more, General Elena Vasquez announced to the assembled military and scientific leaders in the underground command center beneath the ruins of what had once been Geneva. The holographic display showed new drop pods entering Earth's atmosphere, larger than the first wave, with thermal signatures suggesting even more formidable biological weapons. Dr. James Chen, who had led the team that first successfully dissected a ravager, stepped forward. The new specimens appear to be equipped with thicker dermal plating and what looks like specialized sensory organs. They're adapting to our tactics. So will we, Elena replied grimly. She turned to the communications officer. Make sure every defense zone receives the updated biological profiles as soon as we have them. I want worldwide distribution of countermeasures within 6 hours of first contact. The first wave of ravagers had taught humanity painful but valuable lessons. Traditional military responses had proven ineffective against the bioengineered predators. Conventional weapons could eventually bring down a beast, but at a terrible cost in human lives. It was only when people began sharing information. Soldiers, hunters, biologists, even veterinarians, that effective strategies emerge. The miracle wasn't just scientific, it was social. Political enemies shared critical intelligence. Religious differences were set aside. Cultural barriers dissolved in the face of extinction. Humanity didn't just fight as nations or armies. They fought as individuals united by a common goal: survival. Elena's tablet chimed with an incoming transmission. The face of Captain Alexei Petrov appeared on screen. Gaunt, scared, but very much alive. He was operating from one of the captured Vraxian deployment vessels. General, we've managed to access their tactical databases, Alexei reported. These bastards have done this before. 17 recorded successful planetary subjugations using these war beasts. Always the same playbook. What makes us different? Elena asked. Alexei's face broke into a rare smile. Us, humans. The Vraxians' records show they've never encountered a species with our particular psychology. Most sentient species they've conquered either have hive minds that collapse when central nodes are destroyed, or they're so individualistic they can't coordinate effectively. Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. We're the worst of both worlds for them. Independent problem solvers who share information freely and adapt collectively. There's more, Alexei continued. The beasts are controlled through ultrasonic signals from the deployment ships. If we can disrupt those signals, we can turn their weapons against them. Elena finished, already seeing the potential. The meeting was interrupted by alarms. The second wave had made planetfall. The new beasts, dubbed juggernauts by frontline troops, were indeed more formidable than the Ravagers. Standing nearly 4 meters tall, with armor that could repel most conventional firearms, they moved with surprising speed for their size. But humanity was ready. In Seoul, defenders lured a juggernaut into a prepared electrical trap that overloaded its nervous system. In Lagos, fighters used modified Ravager toxins delivered through improvised pneumatic launchers to target exposed sensory organs. Outside Moscow, a group of engineers and mathematicians had decoded enough of the control frequencies to temporarily confuse a pack of juggernauts, causing them to attack each other. Aboard the inevitable Victory, Admiral Zirax watched in growing horror as the second wave failed even more quickly than the first. This defies all strategic logic, he hissed. A pre-FTL civilization should not be capable of this level of adaptation. Sir, Cravex reported, the humans have decoded our control frequencies. They're turning the juggernauts against our own deployment ships. The tactical display confirmed this nightmare scenario. In multiple theaters, humans had managed to capture control transmitters and were redirecting the beasts to attack Vraxian assets. Dr. Vexis, who had been studying human behavior patterns nonstop since the anomalies first appeared, cleared her throat nervously. Admiral, I believe I understand what we're facing. Humans have an evolutionary history unlike any species we've encountered. They evolved not as apex predators or as prey animals, but as persistence hunters. Explain, Zirax demanded. They pursued prey animals until exhaustion, not through superior speed or strength, but through sheer determination and endurance. This required problem solving, cooperation, and adaptation. When we deployed our beasts, we didn't trigger a prey response of flight or surrender. We triggered a hunter response. On Earth, the counter-offensive was accelerating. The defense perimeter around the captured deployment ships expanded daily. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock to understand and repurpose Braxian technology. The breakthrough came when a team in Bangalore successfully reverse-engineered the propulsion system from a damaged Braxian shuttle. The technology wasn't as alien as it first appeared. The principles were recognizable, just implemented with materials and precision beyond current human manufacturing capabilities. It's like they're only about a century ahead of us technologically, one engineer remarked. Advanced, yes, but not incomprehensible. Within weeks, the first human-modified Braxian shuttles were ready for deployment. They weren't pretty, a hodgepodge of alien technology and human ingenuity, but they were functional, and they were armed with weapons specifically designed to target Braxian weaknesses. Admiral Zirax was in the midst of ordering a tactical retreat when the first attack came. Human-piloted vessels, using modified Braxian technology, breached the defensive perimeter of the invasion fleet. They didn't attempt to engage the Braxian warships directly. That would have been suicide. Instead, they targeted communication arrays, sensor nodes, and the remaining deployment ship hangars. They're not trying to destroy us, Cravex realized with dawning horror. They're isolating us, cutting off our ability to coordinate. The human vessels moved with reckless speed and unpredictable patterns. Braxian targeting systems, designed to track the logical flight paths of civilized space combat, struggled to lock onto the erratic trajectories. Admiral, Cravex reported, we've lost communication with the entire Southern Hemisphere deployment group. The humans have somehow adapted our own encryption against us. Dr. Vexis, who had been monitoring human communication channels, looked up from her station. Sir, they're broadcasting a message, to you specifically. The main display activated, showing the face of a human female. Her expression was not one of fear or desperation, but of calm determination. This is General Elena Vasquez of Earth Unified Defense. You came to our world believing us to be easy prey. You were wrong. We are giving you one opportunity to withdraw your forces. Any Braxian vessels remaining in Earth orbit in 24 hours will be destroyed. Zirax snarled. They cannot possibly threaten a Braxian battle cruiser. This is a bluff. Even as he spoke, alarms blared across the command deck. Sir, we're detecting multiple launches from Earth's surface. Hundreds, thousands of small objects ascending rapidly. The tactical display showed the trajectories. Crude missiles, barely more than rockets with guidance systems, but there were so many. And mixed among them were the modified Braxian shuttles, each carrying what appeared to be captured war beasts. Impossible, Zirax whispered. The human assault was unlike anything in the Braxian combat doctrine. There was no central attack pattern, no recognizable formation. Each human vessel operated independently yet somehow as part of a greater whole. When Braxian defenses adapted to one attack vector, the humans immediately shifted to another. And then came the final indignity. Human ships began broadcasting the control frequencies for the war beasts, but modified, enhanced. The juggernauts and remaining ravagers on Earth suddenly stopped responding to Braxian commands and turned their attention upward, toward the orbiting fleet. Incredibly, impossibly, the beasts began to climb. They scaled buildings, mountains, any structure that brought them closer to the ships above. And when they could climb no higher, they waited. For what? Zirax couldn't imagine. He got his answer when the first human transports landed among the gathered beasts. Instead of attacking the humans, the war beasts allowed themselves to be loaded aboard. The humans had completely subverted the control systems. Admiral, Crevex's voice was barely audible. All deployment ships have been compromised. War beast control has been lost. The humans are. They're bringing the beasts to us. Zirax stared at the tactical display in silence. Everything about this invasion had defied Braxian military doctrine. The humans should have broken under the onslaught of the war beasts. Instead, they had analyzed, adapted, and overcome. And now they were carrying the fight to the stars. Sir, Kravex prompted. Your orders? Admiral Zirax of the Vraxian Empire, conqueror of 17 worlds, looked at the approaching swarm of human vessels, each carrying the very weapons that were supposed to have subdued this primitive species. Send the withdrawal code, he said quietly. All vessels. Full retreat. As the Vraxian fleet began its humiliating departure from Earth orbit, Zirax made one final entry in the Imperial records. Classification update for species 1742C, designation human. Threat assessment revised from minimal to extreme. Recommended approach, quarantine, and avoid. Note for future reference. Humans do not react to predators as prey. They react as rival predators. And they learn very, very quickly. On Earth, as the alien ships vanished into the depths of space, humanity looked to the stars with new eyes. They had faced extinction, and not only survived but emerged stronger. They had captured alien technology, biology, and knowledge that would advance their civilization by centuries. But perhaps most importantly, they had discovered something about themselves. When faced with annihilation, they had set aside their differences and united as one species. They had proven themselves worthy of the stars. And somewhere out there, the Vraxian Empire was spreading the word. The little blue planet was not to be trifled with.